1609 AD. Philip III of Spain signed a 12-year truce with the Dutch, effectively recognizing their independence. Duke Maximilian of Bavaria organizes a Catholic League to oppose the Protestant Union in Germany. John William of Cleves dies without an heir. Brandenburg and Nuremberg quarrel over their territory. James I begins settling Protestants in Ulster. 1610 AD. Galileo observes 4 moons orbiting Jupiter. Henry IV of France is assassinated by Francois Rabelais. He is succeeded by his son Louis XIII. The Jamestown colonists abandon their settlement, but on meeting a ship of new settlers, return and try again. Tsar Vasily Shuisky is deposed by Sigismund III of Poland and abducted to Warsaw. Vladislav, Sigismund's son, is offered the throne. Frederick IV of the Palatinate dies and is succeeded by his son, Frederick V. 1611 AD. Henry Hudson is marooned by mutineers while searching for the Northwest Passage and is never heard of again. Denmark declares war on Sweden. Emperor Rudolf II is forced to resign the Bohemian crown in favour of his brother Matthias. Karl IX of Sweden dies and is succeeded by his son Gustavus II Adolphus. 1612 AD. Emperor Rudolf II dies and is succeeded as Holy Roman Emperor by his brother Matthias. Prince Dmitry Pojarski forces the Polish in Moscow to surrender, thwarting Vladislav of Poland's claim for the throne. Henry, Prince of Wales, dies of typhoid. 1613 AD. Sweden and Denmark make the Peace of Njord. Sweden gives up Finland. Mikhail Romanov, son of the Patriarch of Moscow, is elected Tsar by the boyars. The Globe Theatre burns down during a performance of Shakespeare's Henry VIII. 1614 AD. Pocahontas marries John Rolfe, a settler. The adult parliament meets, but is dissolved after clashes with James I over finance. The French parliament, the Estates General, convene, but is dismissed by the Duc de Richelieu. The Virginian colonists resist French colonial attempts in Maine and Nova Scotia. Cleves is divided between Brandenburg and Nuremberg by the Treaty of Saith. John Napier publishes a book of logarithms. 1615 AD. The Moluccas seized from the Portuguese by the Dutch, whilst the English defeat a Portuguese fleet off Bombay. Osaka falls to the Tokugawa shogunate. Lady Arabella Stuart starves herself to death in the Tower of London. 1616 AD. Baffin Bay, discovered by William Baffin. Francis Beaumont and Miguel de Cervantes die. William Shakespeare dies on his 52nd birthday. Manchurian Tartars invade China. Walter Raleigh is released from the Tower to search for El Dorado. James I sells peerages to raise funds. Maximilian of Tyrol and Archduke Albert renounce their claims to the imperial throne in favour of Ferdinand of Styria. Galileo is arrested for heresy. 1617 AD. Russia and Sweden make the Peace of Stolbovo. Novgorod is returned to Russia, but Karelia is ceded to Sweden. Pocahontas is received by James I at court, but dies of smallpox soon after. Sultan Ahmad I dies and is succeeded by his brother Mustafa I. 1618 AD. Richelieu is exiled to Avignon after conspiring with the Queen Mother. Bohemian rebels through the regions. Jaroslav von Martinitz and William Slawata out of the Ragani Palace in the defenestration of Prague, an act which precipitates the 30 Years' War, as rebels led by Henrik von Thurn advance on Austria, and an imperial army is raised to face them. Duke Albert Frederick of Prussia dies. His duchy passes to John Sigismund of Brandenburg. Francis Bacon is made Lord Chancellor. Walter Raleigh returns from his fruitless expedition to South America and is executed by James I for treason to appease the Spaniards. Sultan Mustafa I is declared unfit to rule and is replaced by his nephew Osmond II. 1619 AD. Emperor Matthias dies. His cousin Ferdinand II of Styria succeeds him, but is deposed by the Bohemian Diet in favour of Frederick V of the Palatinate. A Bohemian army under Count von Thurn besieges Vienna, but is forced to withdraw. Louis XIII recalls Richelieu to subdue a revolt by Marie de Medici. The Treaty of Angoulême ends the conflict. William Harvey establishes the circulation of the blood. 1620 AD. Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden occupies Livonia after declaring war on Poland. The Pilgrim Fathers depart from Plymouth to America. The Speed Whale is forced to turn back, but the Mayflower arrives at Cape Cod. The settlement is called New Plymouth. Count von Tilly leads a Catholic Union army to victory in the Battle of the White Mountain against Frederick of Bohemia, who is deposed. The Bohemian revolt is suppressed by Emperor Frederick. Oliver Cromwell is denounced for playing cricket. 1621 AD. Frederick V of the Palatinate is placed under imperial ban and his electorate invaded. The Huguenots rebel against Louis XIII. Philip III of Spain dies and is succeeded by his son Philip IV, who resumes the war with the Netherlands. Count Oliviers becomes Chief Minister of Spain. The Dutch West India Company is founded. Francis Bacon is impeached by Parliament for corruption, but is pardoned by James I. 1622 AD. Richelieu is created a and Mustafa I is restored to the throne. 1623 AD. Abbas I of Persia takes Baghdad and Mosul from the Ottomans. Sultan Mustafa I is removed again from the throne and replaced by his nephew Murad IV. Count von Tilly defeats Brunswick at Stadelton and advances on Westphalia. Shogun Hitada abdicates in favor of his son Iemitsu. Velázquez is appointed court painter to Philip IV of Spain. The first folio of Shakespeare's plays is published. 1624 AD. Cardinal Richelieu is made the chief minister of Louis XIII of France. 1625 AD. James I dies and is succeeded by his son Charles I. Sir William Courtine establishes a settlement on Barbados. Henry, Duke de Rohan, leads a Huguenot rebellion against Louis XIII. Emperor Ferdinand II makes Wallenstein general of the imperial forces and Duke of Friedland. Breda falls to the Spanish after an 11-month siege. Count von Tilly invades Saxony. 1626 AD. Peter Minuit buys Manhattan from the Wappinger Confederacy for 60 guilders, founding New Amsterdam. The French colonize Madagascar. Louis XIII and the Huguenots make the peace of La Rochelle. Wallenstein defeats a Protestant army at the Bridge of Dessau. The Duchy of Urbino is bequeathed to the Pope. 1627 AD. Pirates attack Reykjavik. The Huguenots rise again. Richelieu besieges La Rochelle, which the Duke of Buckingham tries but fails to relieve. Imperial forces conquer Silesia, Brunswick, Mecklenburg, Schleswig, Holstein, and Jutland, forcing Christian IV of Denmark to retire from the war. Jahangir dies and is succeeded by his grandson, Dewar Baksh. 1628 AD. Wallenstein obtains the Duchy of Mecklenburg, assumes the title Admiral of the Baltic, but fails to take Stralsund. Shah Dewar Baksh is removed from the throne by his uncle, Shah Jahan I. Gustavus Adolphus enters the 30 Years' War. The Duke of Buckingham is assassinated by John Felton at Portsmouth. La Rochelle capitulates to Louis XIII. Ignatius Loyola is canonized. 1629 AD. Shah Abbas of Persia dies and is succeeded by his grandson, Saith I. Charles I dissolves Parliament and assumes direct rule. Emperor Ferdinand II issues the Edict of Restitution, restoring church estates and permitting freedom of worship only to adherents of the Confession of Augsburg, which the Catholic League ruthlessly enforces. Christian IV of Denmark regains his lands by the Peace of Lubeck, on condition he refrains from intervening in imperial affairs. Sweden and Poland make the Peace of Altmark. Belden Gabor of Transylvania dies and is succeeded by his wife, Catherine of Brandenburg. 1630 AD. Gustavus Adolphus invades Germany, whilst Emperor Ferdinand II dismisses Wallenstein and replaces him with Tilly. Boston, founded by John Winthrop. Sultan Murad IV defeats the Persians and captures Hamadan. Anglo-French hostilities are ended by the Treaty of Madrid. George Bukowski I is elected Prince of Transylvania on the death of Stephen Bethlen. 1631 AD. Richelieu and the German Protestant princes ally with Gustavus Adolphus against Emperor Ferdinand II. Urbino is annexed by the papacy. Tilly brutally sacks Magdeburg, burns Hull, and invades Saxony, but is defeated by Gustavus Adolphus at the Battle of Breitenfeld. Gustavus Adolphus takes Frankfurt am Oder, Würzburg, and Mainz. Wallenstein is reappointed by the Emperor Ferdinand II. 1632 AD. Gustavus Adolphus defeats Tilly, who is mortally wounded at the Lech, and takes Munich. At the Battle of Lutzen, he defeats Wallenstein, but is killed in action. His daughter Christina succeeds him on the Swedish throne. Shah Jahan orders the destruction of Hindu temples. Charles I issues a charter for the colony of Maryland under the governorship of Lord Baltimore. The first coffee shop opens in London. Sigismund III of Poland dies and is succeeded by his son, Vladislav VII. 1633 AD. Wallenstein defeats Bernard of Saxe-Weimar and a Swedish army at Stenau and occupies Bohemia. Galileo is forced by the Inquisition to abjure the theories of Copernicus. 1634 AD. The Oberammergau Passion Play is enacted for the first time. Russia and Poland make peace via the Treaty of Polinovska. Vladislav VII renounces his claim to Russia. Emperor Ferdinand II relieves Wallenstein of command, replacing him with Matthias Gallus. Wallenstein is assassinated soon after, whilst imperial troops defeat the Swedes at Nordlingen and conquer Württemberg and Franconia. 1635 AD. Cardinal Richelieu founds the Académie Française. Emperor Ferdinand II settles differences with Elector John George of Saxony via the Peace of Prague, after France and Sweden formally ally against him, formally bringing France into the 30 Years' War. Sweden and Poland agree a 20-year truce via the Treaty of Sturmstorf. France and Saxe-Weimar ally by the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye. The first General Post Office in England opens in Bishopsgate, London. 1636 AD. Persia and the Ottoman Empire make peace. Oliviares invades Picardy. Swedish troops defeat the Saxons at the Battle of Woodstock. Harvard College is founded in Cambridge, Massachusetts. 1637 AD. Emperor Ferdinand II dies and is succeeded by his son Ferdinand III. Boguslav XIV of Pomerania dies without an heir. His lands are divided between Sweden and Prussia. The Dutch, under Frederick Henry of Orange, recapture Breda. 1638 AD. The Scottish Covenant is drawn up and signed, forcing Charles I to withdraw Laud's liturgy in Scotland. Bernard of Saxe-Weimar takes Freiburg and Breisach. Sultan Murad IV retakes Baghdad from the Persians. Torture is abolished in England. 1639 AD. The First Bishops' War erupts in Scotland between the Covenanters and Charles I. Peace comes by the pacification of Berwick, and Charles I grants the Scots a General Assembly and a Parliament, which he dissolves at the end of the year. Dutch Admiral Martin Tromp destroys a Spanish fleet in the decisive Battle of the Downs. 1640 AD. Catalonia revolts against Spanish taxes and control. Sultan Murad IV dies and is succeeded by his brother Ibrahim. Charles I is forced to reconvene Parliament, but the short Parliament refuses to authorize any taxes and is dissolved. The Scots revolt in the Second Bishops' War, defeating the English at Newburn. Thomas Wentworth is created Earl of Strafford. The Great Council of Peers, summoned by Charles I, concludes the Treaty of Ripon, paying off the Scots, and insists on the election of Parliament. The Long Parliament is duly elected. João of Braganza is elected King of Portugal, which breaks free from Spain. But Spain refuses to recognize this. Elector George William of Brandenburg dies, and is succeeded by his son Frederick William, the Great Elector. Strafford and Laud are impeached. 1641 AD. Tsar Michael I forbids the sale and use of tobacco, yet makes the substance a state monopoly. Strafford is executed. Parliament abolishes the Star Chamber. Parliament sends the Grand Remonstrance to Charles I, who is infuriated. The Comte de Soissons plots against Louis XIII, but Jean d'Orléans, the king's brother, exposes him. The Irish Catholics revolt. 1642 AD. Charles I enters the House of Commons to arrest Hampden, Pym, Halls, Hazelrig and Strode for treason, but the quintet have been warned and take refuge in the city of London. Charles I flees London, rejects Parliament's 19 propositions, and raises his standard in Nottingham, triggering the Civil War. Rupert of the Rhine defeats the parliamentarians at Bowick Bridge and Edgehill. Blaise Pascal invents an adding machine. Cardinal Richelieu dies. Cardinal Mazarin replaces him as First Minister of France. Abel Tasman discovers Van Diemen's Land, Tasmania, and New Zealand. 1643 AD. Evangelista Torricelli develops the barometer. Parliamentarians under Fairfax take Leeds. Cromwell is victorious at Grantham, but Hampden is defeated and killed at Chalgrove Field. Louis XIII of France dies and is succeeded by his son Louis XIV. French troops defeat a combined Spanish, Italian, Dutch and Flemish army at the Battle of Rocroi. Royalists are victorious at Roundaway Down and take Bristol, but are defeated at Gloucester. emperor, but is driven out by the Manchus, who found the Qing dynasty with Junshi as emperor. John Milton writes his pamphlet, The Areopagita, on press freedom. The Scottish Covenanters joined the Civil War on the parliamentarian side. After a royalist victory at Cupreddy Bridge, Cromwell heavily defeats Prince Rupert at Marston Moor and takes York. Scottish royalists under Montrose defeat the Covenanters at Tippermuir. Charles captures Fowey, whilst the Second Battle of Newbury is indecisive. 1645 AD. Archbishop Laud is executed. Montrose defeats the Covenanters at Inverlochy. The Ottomans and Venice war over Crete. Armistice talks between Charles I and Parliament fail at Uxbridge. John Milburn publicises leveller ideas. Swedish troops defeat the Imperial Army at Jankow and take Moravia. The Dutch occupy St. Helena. Parliament creates the new model army under Fairfax and Cromwell, which decisively defeats the royalists at Naseby. Tsar Michael I dies and is succeeded by his son Alexei. The French defeat the Bavarians at Nordland. Prince Rupert surrenders Bristol, incurring his uncle's wrath. Covenanters rout Montrose at Philippo. 1646 AD. The Swedes take Prague, and in concert with the French invade Bavaria. Royalist armies in Exeter and Oxford capitulate to parliamentarians. Charles surrenders to the Covenanters at Southwell. Held in Newcastle, Charles fails to reach agreement with Parliament and tries, but fails to escape. 1647 AD. George Fox finds the Friends of the Truth, later to become the Quakers. Matthew Hopkins, the witch-finder general, is found guilty of witchcraft himself and hanged. Bear bidding and folk dancing are banned in England. The Scots hand over Charles I to Parliament in return for £400,000. Stadtholder Frederick Henry of Holland dies and is succeeded by his son William II. Naples revolts against Spanish rule. Bavaria and Cologne state their neutrality in the 30 Years' War by the Treaty of Ulm, but Emperor Ferdinand III gains their support. Mainz and Hesse withdraw from the fray. 1648 AD. Parliament loses patience with Charles I after he makes a secret treaty with the Scots, who rebel along with the Welsh. Spain reasserts its rule over Naples. Ukrainians under Bogdan Shalmaki lead a pogrom of Jews in a bid to establish independence from Poland. Sultan Ibrahim is deposed and killed by his janissaries for lifting the siege of Heraclion, and is succeeded by his son Muhammad IV. The Second Civil War is short-lived, Cromwell defeating the Scots at Preston, and Colonel Thomas Pride burst his parliament to ensure Charles I is put on trial. The Fronde riots break out in Paris, asserting the rights of the Paris Parliament. The Peace of Westphalia ends the 30 Years' War, but is condemned by Pope Innocent X. 1649 AD. and executed. Parliament abolishes the monarchy and the House of Lords, proclaiming a Commonwealth. The War of the Fronde is ended by the Treaty of Rueil. However, a second Fronde uprising breaks out. The Levellers and the Diggers are suppressed. Royalists rebel in Ireland. Cromwell sacks Drogheda and Wexford. 1650 AD. Mazarin allies himself with the leaders of the First Fronde and imprisons the leaders of the Second. René Descartes dies whilst in the service of Queen Christina. Montrose leads a Scottish uprising against Parliament, but is defeated at Carpsdale, betrayed by Neil MacLeod and hanged. Archbishop James Ussher calculates that the earth was created in 4004 BC. Charles II arrives in Scotland. Cromwell invades Scotland and is victorious at Dunbar. Stadtholder William II dies of smallpox, leaving a posthumously born heir, William III. The Holy Roman Empire and Sweden reach an accord with the Treaty of Nuremberg. 1651 AD. Charles II is crowned at Scone and invades England, but is defeated by Cromwell at Worcester, evades capture and flees to France. Thomas Hobbes publishes Leviathan and John Playford, the English dancing master. Paris Parliament votes for the release of the Great Condé, leader of the Fronde, forcing Mazarin from the country, but he returns with an army to suppress the rebellion. Shogun Iemitsu dies and is succeeded by his son, Ieyatsuna, who quickly suppresses two rebellions. 1652 AD. Jan van Riebeeck founds Cape Town. The Great Conde defeats a royalist army at Plano and is welcomed in Paris, where a rebel government is formed. However, the government quarrels with the Parisian middle class, which lets Louis XIV into the city. Parliament publishes the Reconciliatory Act of Pardon and Oblivion. Admiral Robert Blake defeats Martin Trump off Dover, and England and Holland go to war, but Blake is defeated off Dungeness. 1653 AD. The pirate Zheng Zhengzhong ravishes the Chinese coast in his war with the Manchus. Mazarin returns to Paris and suppresses the Fronde. Lorenzo Tonti devises the Tontine system of life insurance. The English fleet defeats the Dutch of Portland, North Foreland, and at Taxel. Cromwell dissolves the Long Parliament, and after the unsuccessful Bare-Bones Parliament is made Lord Protector. Isaac Walton publishes The Complete Angler. 1654 AD. The Treaty of Westminster ends the Anglo-Dutch War. Queen Christina of Sweden abdicates and is succeeded by her cousin Karl X. Bogdan Chimniki swears allegiance to Russia, which goes to war with Poland, taking Smolensk. 1655 AD. Colonel Penruck leads a rising against Cromwell in Wiltshire, which is suppressed. The English, under Vice Admiral Penn, take Jamaica from the Spanish. Karl X of Sweden invades Poland, precipitating the First Northern War. Elector Frederick William of Brandenburg invades Prussia. 1656 AD. Sweden and Prussia ally by the Treaty of Knigsberg, whilst Denmark, Russia, and the Holy Roman Empire declare war on Sweden. Spain declares war on Britain. Sweden defeats Poland at the Battle of Warsaw. Baruch Spinoza is excommunicated for heresy. João IV of Portugal dies and is succeeded by his son, Alfonso VI. 1657 AD. Christian Huygens develops the pendulum clock. Cromwell rejects an offer of the crown and establishes a nominated House of Lords. Emperor Ferdinand dies and is succeeded by his son, Leopold I. Admiral Blake destroys a Spanish treasure fleet at Santa Cruz. Brandenburg allies with Poland against Sweden by the Treaty of Bromberg. 1658 AD. The stagecoach service is established in England. Jan Swammerdam observes red blood cells for the first time. The Treaty of Roskilde. The Treaty of Roskilde ends the First Northern War, but Charles X of Sweden starts a second by unsuccessfully attacking Copenhagen. An Anglo-French force defeats the Spanish at the Battle of Dunes, and England acquires Dunkirk. Shah Jahan I is imprisoned by his son, Aurangzeb. Alamgir I, who replaces him as Mughal Emperor. Oliver Cromwell dies. His son Richard becomes Lord Protector. 1659 AD. Elector Frederick William of Brandenburg drives the Swedes from Prussia. Richard Cromwell resigns as Lord Protector. Conflict between army and parliament leads to a state of near anarchy. France and Spain make the Peace of the Pyrenees. 1660 AD. General Monk, commanding general in Scotland, leads his troops to London to call for a new parliament, which meets and votes for the restoration of the monarchy under Charles II. Karl X of Sweden dies and is succeeded by his son, Karl XI. Charles II makes the Declaration of Breda, promising religious toleration, and returns to England. The Peace of Oliva ends the hostilities between Sweden, Poland, Brandenburg, and the Holy Roman Empire. Denmark reaches peace with and cedes Scania to Sweden by the Treaty of Copenhagen. The Royal Society for the Promotion of Natural Knowledge is founded. George Rakowski II of Transylvania dies in battle against the Turks. 1661 AD. Michael Apafi I is elected to replace the deceased George Rakowski III as Prince of Transylvania. Chinese living within 10 miles of the coast are ordered to move inland in an attempt to deter pirate Cheng Kong. Cardinal Mazarin dies, letting Louis XIV begin personal rule. The Cavalier Parliament meets in England. The Peace of Cardiff between Sweden and Russia finally ends the Second Northern War. Tangier and Bombay are ceded to England by Portugal in a Treaty of Alliance. 1662 AD. France and Holland ally against England. The revised prayer book is imposed on Anglicans. The Royal Society is granted a royal charter by Charles II. Dunkirk is sold to France by Charles II for £400,000. 1663 AD. inscriptions a belles lettres in Paris. The Ottomans declare war on the Holy Roman Empire and invade Hungary. Colbert makes New France into a colony with Quebec as the capital. 1664 AD. France and Saxony make an alliance. The Conventicle Act bans unauthorized religious meetings of more than 5 people in England in an attempt to suppress nonconformism. Austrian troops defeat the Turks at St. Gothard and the Rab River and make the Truce of Phosphor. New Amsterdam under Peter Stuyvesant surrenders to the English, who rename it New York. 1665 AD. The Great Plague hits London. The Second Anglo-Dutch War opens. The Dutch are defeated off Lowestoft. Anglo-Portuguese forces defeat the Spanish at Villafranca and Monteclares, securing Portuguese independence. Philip IV of Spain dies and is succeeded by his son, Charles II. 1666 AD. Louis XIV founds a French Academy of Sciences. Holland allies with Brandenburg, Brunswick, and Denmark to secure its safety, whilst France declares war on England. The English and Dutch fleets meet in the inconclusive 4 days battle before an English victory at Orfordness. London is ravaged by a great fire starting in Pudding Lane. 1667 AD. Russia and Poland make peace with the Treaty of Antrozovzo, ending their 13-year war. Kiev, Smolensk, and the eastern Ukraine are ceded to Russia. John Milton's Paradise Lost is published. French troops invade Flanders and Hainaut, starting the War of Devolution. The Dutch sail up the Medway to Chatham, sinking several ships and taking the English flagship back to Holland. England, Holland, and France make peace by the Treaty of Breda. The Medway debacle leads to the fall of Clarendon and the Cabal administration under